Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast, where we spotlight life-changing books and the extraordinary authors behind them. Today's episode features a powerful voice of compassion, resilience, and purpose. Serah W. Muiruri, certified rehabilitation counselor, master's level clinician, life coach, and author of the transformative new guide, Breaking Chains, a guide to overcoming interpersonal violence and reclaiming your strength. Born in Kenya and now serving communities in Massachusetts, Serah brings decades of experience in human services, working with individuals facing a wide range of challenges, from cognitive disabilities to emotional trauma. But what sets her apart is her unwavering commitment to helping others rise above pain and reclaim their lives. In this conversation, Serah shares her deep insights into the patterns of abuse, how to break free from cycles of violence, and the steps survivors can take to heal, rebuild, and thrive. So whether you're a survivor, an advocate, or someone seeking to better understand interpersonal violence, this episode offers both guidance and hope. Serah's faith-driven, purpose-filled journey is both inspiring and empowering, and her book is a practical, heartfelt roadmap for reclaiming personal strength and walking toward a life of freedom and peace. So there we are, Serah. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that this is going to be a great interview. So, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Chris. Thank you for asking.
No problem at all. It's always good to meet authors and to discuss, your passion kind of thing. So,
Of
Serah,
course, of course.
yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, what inspired you to write Breaking Chains? Was there a kind of defining moment that made you realize this book needed to exist?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, Chris. Yes, I had a defining moment. I was in a very toxic relationship, and that's what triggered me to look for resources. And when I was looking for resources, they were not as available or readily available. I had to navigate through challenges, which, if I knew I had a guide that would help me go through it, it would have been much, much, much easier. So that's where I decided once I had passed through that toxic relationship and got into a better healing process, I thought it would be great to have to write a tool, to have a tool for people to out there that are in the same position that I was. That's what triggered this. And then also, as a life coach, I encounter a lot of people that are going through interpersonal violence, and I get asked questions a lot. Well, how can I navigate through a particular situation? So it was a combination of both, wanting to provide support for people, and also for me as well, to put out put a word out there that can also be of encouraging to people. So both ways I'm getting, passion. My life is passion driven. So this is an area that I'm very, very passionate about. And of course, I want to leave a legacy of hope for people.
And I think that's really important, isn't it, in a situation like this? So many people, I think, when it comes to interpersonal violence, feel very lonely, don't they? There's no one to turn to. Um,
Absolutely, yes. You feel lonely. It's confusing. It's also very painful, and you go through bouts of grief as well because when we are going through this type of toxic situations, we also are losing a positive aspect of something that we had probably held on for a very long time, and maybe it doesn't matter the moment that or the timeline, but the fact that you're losing something, there's that void and you keep going back and forth. So yes, it can be very confusing and very lonely because you
yeah.
don't know if sharing is going to cause more trauma, is going to cause more judgment, and therefore most of the times people keep these things to themselves, which is
No.
also not a good thing.
It's a very hard thing to deal with, isn't it? I mean, and this is the good thing about your book. And you mentioned judgment there, and your book talks a lot about understanding and overcoming this interpersonal violence. So I think it's probably a good idea to see how you define that. I mean, how do you define interpersonal violence so that readers who may not fully grasp its scope understand exactly what we're talking about?
Sure. Interpersonal violence, I have spoken before about it, and I think some people confuse that with domestic, intimate relationships.
Mhm.
But for interpersonal violence, it encompasses a lot more than just the domestic violence piece. Because in any relationship that you have with someone, and it's not positive, it's negative, it's demeaning, it's derogatory. Those type of situations actually lead to more danger. So interpersonal violence, it can come at any minute wherever you are interacting with someone, and sometimes it starts with subtle comments, and also it can also be packaged in from a help perspective, even though the perpetrator may have other ideas behind that. So it's interpersonal violence is really a combination of so many things. It could be emotional damage, it could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be emotional. So, and then also it can happen in any environment. At work, it happens as well. If you have a boss that also is demeaning and negative, it's counterproductive. If it's obviously sometimes it comes from in the form of family relationships. Sometimes when you are in a family situation whereby you have siblings, you don't get along for whatever reason, and that's classic. But then it also can get to a very, let's say, from the neutral ground to go to the other side, whereby it becomes a lot more than just the usual disagreements with our family members. So it can come at any minute where, and of course, it's also based on the relationship that you may have had with others. It's not just a relationship that you may have an encounter with a stranger. Usually, perpetrators are people that you interact with on a daily basis, people that you may even trust, people that you may, at one point in time, you had a positive encounter, or so you thought. So it can be, it's not something that really comes out of your circle, it happens within your circle. That's how I would
Yeah.
define it.
Now, and it makes me think about all the times in my life where I've had, I guess, negative relationships, but they've started off well, as you say, and I suppose a boss relationship, a boss employee relationship is quite good example of that. Whereas it might start off really well at the beginning and then, change over time, power dynamics, things like that. And as an employee, we don't have an agency, do we? We don't have the power to fight back.
Yeah. And usually, when you're in that position, it puts you obviously in a vulnerable position. And then you also start to question about is it really happening? Is it me? Is it them? And you really have to get out of it to see exactly what's happening. But typically, people don't get in that. When you're in it, you don't even see the outside of that box.
No, no, we don't really have much of a choice, do you? I mean, that's the thing. And in your book, you include survivor stories, which is really interesting as well. So, how did you find these stories, and how did you choose which ones to include? I mean, and also, was it important to include them, do you think, rather than just talking, but telling people how people did survive?
Exactly. So that's great, Chris, because sometimes you have to go a little bit more. Talk, usually people say talk is cheap. You have to actually have a little bit of substance and a little bit of meat to whatever you are working with. I I'm lucky because as a life coach, I encounter a lot of people that have and in similar situations. Obviously, every abusive situation is very different. Similarities, but the experience itself is really deeply personal. So as I listened to people going through this interpersonal violence, the stories were not similar, but the traits, there was a lot of similarities in terms of the themes of what they were talking about. And I think also it was important for me to get obviously their consent. You cannot really write about people's experiences without having that conversation and release of information. As I also, as a rehab counselor, as a clinician, I am well ingrained in terms of getting the consent and obviously making sure that you're not sharing information that is not really it's personal. You don't want to get into that line of fighting with confidentiality, and we call it HIPAA. So we want to make sure that we're not tethering on that end. And also some of the situations I really did not include actual names because obviously I don't want people to think, okay, she's writing about me. Even though I had already gotten the consent, I had to be discreet in a way whereby people are not going to come back and say, okay, you shared my full story, my full names. And we have this book, we never know where it's going to end up. Then these stories are everywhere in the world. That is not what we want, because obviously when doing that, we would also de-traumatize people and get them in another, even more deeper situation when they are already vulnerable. So that's how I got a lot of these stories. And I think also once someone gets to the point of, okay, I'm not alone. And also it was very important for people to get to know that when you're going through this, it's an everyday occurrence. Abuse does not choose geography. Abuse does not choose a particular culture. It's across the board. So that is why I felt incredibly compelled to actually include these stories in my book, because lived experiences, yes, it's not theory. This is practical and it's happening. And I think it also gives it more power in the statistical world, whereby it's very prevalent. And I think it also makes people aware, because these are different people from all walks of life. Some of them are professionals, others are stay-home moms, others are educated, others are not. So again, this is also hones the point that abuse does not choose. It's across the board. That's how I was able to get these stories, in my book.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that as well, because yeah, abuse doesn't choose. It's not fussy, is it? It
No,
could be
it's not.
anybody. Doesn't matter. Doesn't, as you say, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be professional. You could be whatever. As you say, stay at home mom. Yeah, it's a very sad situation, but obviously your book is a roadmap and really does help people to sort of find a way, if you like. So let's start right at the beginning then with, how can people recognize that this is happening? What are some of the early warning signs of an abusive relationship that maybe people often overlook?
Absolutely, Chris. And that's the saddest part, because abuse, again, sometimes there is that every time I've spoken to people, especially women, we tend to think that we are the only victims in some of these situations. And yes, men, every gender, across, again, cultures, gender, it doesn't choose. So anyway, when you're in that toxic relationship, sometimes the perpetrator, as I had stated before, may come across as someone that's really very, very supportive, very caring. But within that umbrella, it's like a fabric. So the fabric outside is looking good, but on the inside, they have an end goal. And they may not even know it themselves, because trauma, I work in informed trauma settings, and traumatized people may not even know that what they put out is toxic. So there's the number one classic symptom. And then again, the other piece to it too, if abuse can start with verbal engagements. It may just start as subtle, and then it's incremental. Sometimes you get to a point whereby you start doubting yourself. Am I really doing the right thing here? And then the person may also get to a point whereby they get you into a vulnerable position and they beat you down. They are telling you that you're the reason that I do this. And then of course you're the reason that you're doing this, because you are not being living up to their expectations, so to speak. So that can be another detrimental slippery slope. When you start getting to that point, sometimes it's good to just get out of the situation mentally and look from the outside in. Again, it can be emotional. When you see sometimes they are getting you to, they're bridging you, they're gaslighting you, they're getting that better part of you, and you're getting out whatever is, it's inside is in a very toxic manner. If you find that every evening there is an engagement, or every conversation or every engagement that you have with this person is not well intended, it may start out okay, but then within a minute is going to the other direction, only for the perpetrator to get you even more worked up, or even more get the unhealthy remarks out of you. The other biggest thing too, perpetrators also are very good in terms of putting you at bay from the rest of the world. Let's say, for instance, relationships. If you are in a relationship whereby the perpetrator is trying to isolate you from the outside world, they may tell you that, okay, you're full-grown adult because you're not getting into a relationship as a child. You're already an adult. But if they're telling you the choice of the people that you're hanging out with are not good, they kind of dictate, don't hang out with person X, you need to hang out with person Y. That's a classic symptom, a classic sign of, okay, what's going on here? Then it gets to an emotional roller coaster. And then it gets incremental. It can also be physical. We have dealt with people that have obviously gone through, physical abuse, whereby they're coming to work with a black eye, or it could be just a little bit of, they threw a little bit of water, a cup, or here, scars here somewhere. And people are very discreet about it. Oh, no, I fell. And that's usually typical. Typical of a victim. We don't want to get into a position whereby we are blaming other people. We take the blame ourselves. So so obviously you're taking all that and making excuses of the behavior of this person. So some of those situations, sometimes people may even around you may even see what's going on. Sometimes you can also look at somebody, and you once used to have their makeup done, they have their hair done well, they are bubbly, but then over time that that psyche diminishes. Or if they were once a very bubbly person, and now they are coming to a position whereby they are really introverted, then if that drastic personality change is someone to watch out for. And then again, I'm in mental health, so sometimes when you see that there are symptoms of maybe a little bit depression, a little bit of anxiety, they're not even at work, they're not probably able to fulfill tasks as they once did, then you have to question what's really going on here. And even memory, you can also, because you're so entangled with these daily occurrences of toxicity, memory challenges may even be also another area that you can watch, you can look into. If sometimes you are able to kind of wake up on a Saturday morning, clean your house, and all you want to do is sleep on that Saturday morning, change of that routine, that's another area that you also want to look at. So there are so many diverse, this can take a lot of diverse areas, and you also have to be able to kind of have that skill set to peel it out and see exactly what's going on. So those are some of the signs.
Yeah, it's amazing. But you mentioned about changing routines, or before that even, how this can affect you, or how it can affect one, and change the way that we think about ourselves, think of the way that we interact with other people, and so it's kind of amazing to think that, as you said about the change of a routine on a Saturday morning, for instance. So in your book, you're talking about not just surviving, but trying to thrive. Okay. That seems really difficult to me. I mean, what does thriving look like for someone who's experienced interpersonal violence?
Sure, yeah. Thriving, it's I think it has to start from the person themselves and the willingness to say enough is enough. So that way it's gonna come, it's personal. And no matter what the outside world is telling you, if you're not there yet and you're not ready to get out of that situation, it's not going to happen. So, as much as we want people to obviously get out of it, we also have to be compassionate. We have to be very mindful of what we say to people, because yes, we want to, if we are someone that's going through it and you have a family or friends that are wanting you to get out of that situation, because obviously they are looking from the outside in, they may not get the result that they want until you are ready yourself. So what I tell people is, it's a choice, but it's a choice that you have to make and have a deliberate move in terms of trying to get an action plan in place. Sometimes also you have to seek help, and understanding that help does not equate vulnerability. Yes, you're vulnerable, but at the same time, seeking help is not a weakness. That's an area that you have to kind of get to. Again, we also have to remember that we have to cultivate resilience. I have written another book on resilience, empowering resilience. I think it has to come from that point, because once you're resilient, no matter what is facing you, and you have that power within you to be able to get it out. And therefore, as someone that as a victim, you have to obviously be deliberate about cultivating this resilience. And like I have stated before in other forums, resilience is not something that is gonna you wake up today and say, okay, I'm gonna be resilient, but it's getting those baby steps, maybe having an action plan, deciding, and you have to be also very, very intentional. If you say, okay, I'm going to get out, let's say, for instance, hypothetically speaking, it's a relationship that has, it's a marriage, and you want to get out, and you have children involved. What we need to do is create a safety plan, and this is something you can get help. There are so many resources out there. So once you create a safety plan, if you decide, let's say I'm going to get out on a Friday night, so how am I going to get those pick up those kids? Am I putting a little bit of a box, or a little bit, because you're not going to be able to have enough time to get everything out of your house to be able to get out. So just the important documents, the important whatever is of value to you is what you decide, okay, this is how I'm going to get it out on this particular date. And then where do I go from there? All this has to be well thought out. Otherwise, if you get out and have no plan, then it means that you're coming right back to it. And also, it may even get you into a more dangerous position. Again, also, it doesn't have to, make aware of, bring this attention to the attention of the authorities, because one thing that perpetrators are great about is obviously trying every which way to kind of smear you as the bad person. So they may even make allegations against you. They may go to the authorities before you do. And obviously, if they claim something different, and you are the now painted perpetrator, you're getting yourself into a more deeper trouble. Before everything comes out as obviously as intended, there will be now another layer of legalities that you are going to have to deal with. That is not the way to do it. So you're gonna have to be methodical. You have to be able to have an intentional about the right plan, and then of course seek support. It's very, very difficult to go through these challenges by yourself, but you also have to be make sure that you are utilizing the right resources. Trust doesn't come easy, but if you have a friend that you can trust, a friend that can walk with you through thin and thick, you are very, very, very blessed, because most people don't. But if you do have that one friend, then work with them, trust the process, trust that it's gonna happen. But again, also, if you want to again have that well thought out plan, because all it takes is one mistake and you're right back into it, and even much more deeper. So it can be also life threatening as well. These things happen on a day-to-day basis. So again, you have to realize that yes, you have to create that boundary. And how do you create that boundary? It has to start from somewhere and make those baby steps as you walk away from the situation.
Yeah. Well, planning, I can see how that would help, because, if you go and say leave a home environment and you've got nowhere to go, the temptation is, of course, to go straight back. Because well, it's better than not being somewhere. But I think this is the thing as well. You've mentioned about getting help from friends. So friends and family, they can help, which is great. Okay. They can support and they can help you plan and they can be a listening post, right? But how can you get help from friends or family without putting yourself or them at greater risk? Because surely the first temptation of somebody who's asked for help in this situation is to go and basically intervene. So to go and talk to the person, say, you're being like this with this person, stop it. It's not right. And surely that could be really risky.
Very much so. Absolutely, yes. You, as a supporter, let's say you're a family member that's trying to help this person, the last thing that you want to do is confront the abuser, because that confrontation can now actually be projected on you as well. And now, so that escalates the issue much, much more than than it is, whatever, in that particular moment. So what we need to do as support people is meet people where they're at and just be a listener. Sometimes we want to solve people's problems, and especially if you're in human services, we are all fixers. We want to fix this situation. We want to make sure that this is not going the way the way I think is going. Sometimes you have to let people be, but make sure you're also making sure that they're safe. Number one thing that you cannot compromise with is safety. So that's something that you're going to have a one-to-one talk with the victim and let them know that I'm here to listen. I'm here to actually walk through this journey with you. But there are things that you may tell me that I cannot really keep to myself. And also as a therapist, if they are seeking support, professional support, because that's another layer of support, if they're willing to get help through therapy, as a counselor, there are things that obviously I cannot discuss with other people. But when it comes to their safety and they're in dangerous situations, obviously that's something that we need to make a step, because it leaves them in a more vulnerable position and risk. Actually, you're risking your life. They are risking their lives. So that's not something that we can contend with. But then again, you also have to have that compassion. You also have to have that empathetic understanding, because once you display that empathy, people will trust you. But if you're going through the situation and your brother is really mad at you because you're not getting out of it as quickly as they wanted, then it becomes more judgmental. And the least we want to do is being in that circle of detriment. We want to be non-judgmental as best as we can. Give them a shoulder to cry on, and then work with them. And it may have the patience as well. That's the other thing that I tell people all the time. You have to have patience. Remember, this person is very, very conflicted. Remember, this person, their judgment is also very clouded. So beating them down with words can also hurt them even further. And the moment that they sense that you're not on the same page or in the same league with them, then they're going to leave. And then where does that leave them? It leaves them again in a more worse situation than when they came to you. So it's a slippery slope. You have to walk the journey with the person. Sometimes just checking in on a phone, via phone, not being physically present. And even sometimes I've seen people that, yes, they have the phone, but they may have another cell phone that it may have been gotten with another by a different person. You can be that support person. Okay, I'll get your phone. That is just to be used for emergency purposes only. The other thing that you can do is have a code. If I call you with this code and I text ZE, whatever, then you will know what you have to decode what that means. So those are some of the tricks of the trade that you can actually provide to the person that's going through these type of situations, because communication is key. I've had situations where perpetrators tap phone lines, and they listen to every single conversation that you're having as a vulnerable person. Every single conversation you're having with a friend or a family member, they're listening into. That's classic. It happens all the time. So being mindful of your environment as well, because there could be cameras in that house that are discreet that you don't even know about. There could be, other things. The internet, the internet is also very classic in terms of abuse. They may not even, you may not even have the finances to pay the bills, because once you get into these vulnerable situations, sometimes it's even hard to keep a job, and then you're even in a worse off situation than you were. And that's exactly where your perpetrator wants you to be, because once they have total control of you, then the rest is just very level playing field for them, and you're getting yourself in a more dangerous position. So, as a family member, I would say, or as a friend, be mindful of how you provide support, because by providing support the way you think is best for this person may even get them in a more dangerous zone. So there are ways you can do it. You just have to be mindful of the situation and what really best works for this person and the situation they're in.
Yeah, because I can imagine, a well-meaning friend or family member becomes really passionate about this and
Mhm.
starts getting on people's back. What are you doing about it? Why are you still there? Why are you, I can imagine. And
Yeah.
so really that is the worst thing, because I would imagine again that the victim would just sort of shrink into their shell because they
Mhm.
can't take more hassle from that side as well as this side. So I can see why you would advocate that and why your advice would be that. And I love the steps that you just came out with there as well, like looking at a phone or having a second phone like that, which could be really super useful. I could see that as well, because at least it's clean, right? As it were. And I
Yes.
think, again, the internet as well, people possibly don't realize that they could be tracked. But the thing that really got me about what you said was the cameras in the house, because nowadays it's so simple. $30 on Amazon, you've got yourself an internet camera. I use mine for the dog, no one else. But it's so simple to do that, isn't it? It's just incredible. And I remember again going back to say like the 1950s and beforehand, when you had people who were really in these kind of relationships a lot, or so it seemed, like a housewife kind of thing, and about how one of the tips was to squirrel away or to save little bits of the money for housekeeping money, so that they could build up some sort of nest egg, because they didn't have any income of their own, did they? They didn't have any money of their own. So how could they leave? Again, and as you say, another controlling aspect of things. So what are a couple of other steps that people can take, apart from watching out for cameras or being careful with the internet or saving some money? Any others that they could start reclaiming their strength with?
Of course, yes. The other things is educate yourself about what you're going through. Because again, when you step out of a situation and looking from the outside in, you get a lot of it. You get a lot. And there are resources out there. Seek help. Getting help, again, like I said before, it does not equate weakness. So get that help. I make sure that you're also doing what we call self-care. If in terms of helping, you can help yourself too, because you can also make sure that you're eating right. Because the other thing that people get into is they neglect their own health. You're not sleeping a lot. Sleep is very, very important. And of course, I'm not underscoring the nature of the abuse, because sometimes you're not even able to sleep through the night, because obviously, if the perpetrator lives in the same household as you, it makes it even worse. But making sure that you're also eating right, you're also aware, self-awareness of your environment. You cannot be oblivious of what's going on. You have to make sure that you have that ability to scan the house, scan your own emotional state where you are at, and that's where meditation helps. There are simple things that you can do to take care of yourself. Also, lighting a journal, because again, when it comes to a time to leave, you may not be able to really fully, and it becomes a court case or a legality issue. You may not be able to fully explain from day to day happenings. Keep a journal. This is what's going on, because that may help you towards your case as well. And also making sure that you have, if you have children, how do I take care of my kids? How do I get my kids out of it? Because again, as much as you're going through it yourself, if you have kids, it gets even much more complicated. And the worst that happens is these kids are also in this environment. They're going through it with the victim, and that's the saddest part, because again, that trauma gets carried over for generations, because we are our best models for the young ones. And if you're not doing things the right way, that's what we are modeling for these future generations. So that, again, we have to be mindful of all that. But again, just making sure that you're doing things right, making sure that you are scanning your environment. If you have a car that's really following you and you're not aware who the person is, just be careful, because you don't know the extent of where this person is, that can put you into much more danger. Like I said, we've seen a lot of cases whereby people are even dying out of this toxicity. And again, the other day I heard about a situation in Kenya whereby this woman was a very accomplished person. She just had a few issues mentally because of the stress that she was going through. And the person, the husband actually, asked her to go to the hospital, not knowing that in the hospital he had already made arrangements with a particular toxic person as well, and they injected her with something that ended up being fatal. So it can come in so many ways. You just have to be aware. And at that point, no matter how much you think this person maybe come back, because some people are great about coming back and luring you more into this situation. Once you decide that this is what I want out of this, create that boundary, and don't think with your emotions. Think with your clarity of mind and make the right judgment.
Yeah, I can see that. So, and I think again, asking for help, and as you say, you mentioned community resources there at the beginning, and I think it must be really difficult. I mean, what role do community resources and professional help, play in breaking the cycle of violence for people? I mean, how can someone find someone trustworthy to support them?
Exactly. Yeah. Culture, the role of culture, let me touch on culture a little bit. The role of culture is very key in terms of this type of discussions, because culture, your culture, my culture may differ in how they see things, and what would be an appropriate response plan or a strategy for addressing interpersonal violence. In a culture whereby maybe the male dominance is more prevalent, then it's very easy for the perpetrator to get away with things. So as a culture, I think we have to also identify those loopholes as well, and address and have the commitment to address these issues. Of course, we are not in the 1900s, but there are still cultures that really believe that obviously abuse for women is love, and that's how we express love with them. So again, the role of culture is very key. So trusting the right person judgment, making sure that you're making the right judgment. If it's the church, be aware who you're confiding into, and especially if the perpetrator attends the same church. If you're in the same social circles, sometimes you have to let go of that social circle. You have to leave that community that is no longer serving you well and is serving the perpetrator. Again, that's a judgment issue. And sometimes you also going to be held back because where do I go? This is the only community I have. I think the message we need to send to people is that the world is larger than any one particular community. And therefore, having that resilience, we come back to the resilience piece again. You have to kind of get to your own self to a point whereby you're getting that strength within you. And then once you have that strength within you, you'll be able to break away. In terms of professional help, I tell my clients that these are trained professionals and trust the process. But of course, they're human beings too. If you feel like that therapist is not serving you right, there is plenty of other places that you can go to. Seek the help. And then also go to the professionals that are more sensitive to that particular situation, because they are obviously these are professions, and professions that they have specialties as well. If someone is not trained from a trauma-based perspective, and obviously we have that evidence-based approaches, then they're not going to serve you as well as someone else that is familiar, someone else that is able to get you hooked up with the right resources. And sometimes it may not take just talk therapy. Talk therapy is great. Cognitive behavioral techniques apply, but you may need something deeper than that. So you're gonna have to have professionals that are willing to even step out of their comfort zone and help you, work with you to get to the resources that you may need if they themselves are not able to provide that. But that's where the role of ethics comes in, because sometimes people are just quick to check boxes. And remember, when people are going through this, there is a bridge between trauma and then mental health as well. Not everybody is equipped with that empathy in terms of what I want to do the right thing by the patient. And especially where we are, the world that we're living in, there's so much that people are, in one given day, you have so much to do. And therefore you want to just check boxes. So therefore, as the person receiving services, make sure that the professionals that you're using are helping you to get out of those situations in a manner that is more tailored to you, something that's more culturally sensitive to yourself, something that is also population centered, because if you're going through trauma and someone else is going through something else, just maybe mental health, that they need some psychotropic medication, there is no psychotropic medication that's going to heal you through the trauma. Yes, you may address depression. Yes, you may address anxiety. But the more you're staying in those situations, the more toxic it becomes. And therefore, you don't want to be in a vegetative state down the road. So we want to just make sure that the professional help that you're getting is equitable to your own needs and is more person-centered. That's what I would say.
Right. Yeah. I think this is the thing. You've talked about toxicity. You've talked about the problems in society and things like that. So, looking at that, I think it's quite important at the moment. It seems to be in the news quite often about toxic masculinity, for instance, and how that affects the interpersonal relationships. So, how can we as a society better educate people, especially young people, about healthy relationships and consent through that lens?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that is a great topic you bring up, because if we can be proactive in how we work through issues, but then again, as a community, we have to accept whether this is a real prevalent issue, which it is, and then is it a priority for us to do? And I think it has to start as early as high school. We have to start working through these issues on that level. I know in the school system we hear about bullying. Then why is that? So we have to address it at the core as soon as kids are able to understand what it means to treat other people with respect, with dignity, and of course with obviously that human relation. So again, we have to be aware that if this is an issue and it's a prevalent issue, how do we go about it? And I think the best way, like I said, is teaching people. We have to be intentional about it. We don't have to wait for challenges to happen before we can start addressing. So we have to start teaching people about teaching other people, right? We also have to make sure that you are also, as an educator, that you're also trustworthy. Again, you don't talk the talk and not walk the walk. You have to reconcile the two. And again, we also have to sometimes step out of the situation and let the professional also come in, because when you are dealing with people day in, day out, sometimes people may, whatever message you have may not be as well received as someone else coming in that may not be there 24/7. So the approach may be a little bit different, but I think there are organizations that are out there that will be able to come out and give you the resources that you need. Even the police department, for instance, I went to college in the 90s, and I know they also had programs that would teach people about college interaction with male female interaction, and what tips on how to self-preserve. Self-preservation skills need to be implanted in people, ingrained in people, and become second nature to them. Because when you grow up, we are getting into a world when these kids get into 18 and over college level off on their own. That's where the danger starts, because we hoard them, we protect them, but then at some point they're gonna go into the world, and a world that's sometimes filled with so much toxicity, racism. It's another level. That's another whole level of issue that people may come into play with, and then also there is also the dynamic of obviously the police department and the young males as well. How do you interact with police officers in a manner that's not going to put you at risk? How do you interact with other people, aggressive behavior? How do you interact with other people without getting yourself into a situation? Alcohol is another issue that also it can help can get you into much more problems too. And sometimes people drink to numb the pain. And again, why I think addressing the issue from the source. Why are they engaging or indulging in this particular behavior as they are trying to numb the pain within them? So again, the message I want people to hear is that it's okay. If you're going through it, it's okay, but there are things you can do. You do not have to stay where you're at. Experiencing this pain sometimes that's often not visible. People may not even see the scars, but the scars within you are so deep that it's only a matter of time that it will explode. So we have to make sure that we are addressing it from the core, and also trying to teach people on things about mental health, trying to teach people on the classic signs to watch for, and then also empower them to create boundaries. If a situation is no longer serving them well, then create that safe space that they can always come back. We can always map out a strategy of exit, but let's create environments of safety. Let's create environments that are more, collaborative and also in nature, and also welcoming as well.
No, I get that. And it's funny that, we're talking a lot here about helping other people. But writing Breaking Chains must have been really emotionally heavy. I mean, doing this for a living as, kind of mental health first aid as well, and and helping people to understand what they can do. But thinking about your writing process, how did you take care of yourself during that? It must have been quite upsetting at times.
Yes, it was. It was. But I knew for me, the goal, the end result is what I was looking at. And to be honest with you, I did not think that the book would get as much as attention as it's getting. But I knew it's a real issue that we need to address. And for me, it was that was that was the driving factor. I knew that this is what I wanted, and I wanted this tool to get out to people. But again, yes, I have to. I'm a full. I take responsibility. I like vulnerability because it gives me the power to not think that I am any stronger than anybody else out there. I know I can do it, but at the same time, the end result is what helped me through the journey. There was times I had to put that manuscript aside and say, you know what, I'm not going to write again. It took me a while to get the message across, but I knew once I did it, it would get the results out there, and it would help. More importantly, it would help someone else. Yes, it was it was very, very difficult. But then again, I am in a different position. If I were to write this book 10 years ago, I don't know if I could have done it, to be honest with you.
Mm.
But over time, I have learned to forgive. Forgiveness has value. Forgiveness is powerful. And also gratitude. I love the idea of gratitude because no matter what I was going through, someone else may be going through a much worse situation than I am, which is it's the reality.
Mm.
So everybody's pain and everybody's experience is very, very difficult. I mean, very, very different. And that's why I wanted to get involved with those ladies or those gentlemen that I worked with and the people that I have actually cited on my book, because that also gave me strength. Strength in the sense that, okay, I'm not alone. I know other people that have gone through it, and I knew other people that had gone through it and emerged on the other end. So it was only a matter of time. But then again, yes, I cannot really say it wasn't difficult. It really was difficult. But once I was done, it gave me so much relief that, okay, I've accomplished something, and then here I have a tool that long after I'm gone, it's gonna probably save a life or actually help somebody going through the distress that I was going through.
So that's worth it, isn't it? Yeah, that legacy is totally worth it. I understand. Yeah, we're running out of time, Serah. Which is a real shame here. We could talk for hours. But finally, what's one powerful piece of wisdom or encouragement that you can give to our listeners today?
Of course, yes. What I would like to say is, and I have said it again, just seeking help is not a sign of weakness. You can get through it. There are people that are going through it. Again, pain and abuse does not know geography. It does not know a particular culture. It can happen to anybody. Do not sit there and think that, oh, yes, I'm dealing with this. Yes, you are alone because your experience is unique to you. But please know that there are so many other people that are going through the same thing, if not worse. What I would say is get the help that you need. Be intentional about wanting to get the best possible respect that you deserve, because once you get through it, maybe someday you're going to be a beacon of hope to someone else. Don't think about the perpetrator because they have beat you down, they have made you feel like you are nobody, but you are still somebody, and within you you have that motivation, you have that power to change your own situation. And the world will be waiting right here to pick you up even when you fall. So you're not alone in this journey. We are so many of us, and we can always help each other. I may never meet you individually, but I also know that my tool, Breaking Chains, can help you out and also give you the hope that you need to get you to where you need to be, because you have the right, and you have the right to be respected, and you have a life to live. You have a right to live a pain-free life. So that's what I would say.
But and that's really good. Love that message. Brilliant, brilliant. Well, listen, thank you for joining us, everybody, on this deeply meaningful episode of the BrightWord Books podcast. We're honored to have shared this time with Serah W. Muiruri, and we hope her story and her message, I think importantly, resonated with you as much as it did with us. So, if you or someone you know is navigating the aftermath of interpersonal violence, don't walk that path alone. Listen to what Serah's been saying. Serah's book, Breaking Chains, A Guide to Overcoming Interpersonal Violence and Reclaiming Your Strength, is available now on Amazon. It's more than a book, it's a guide, a support system, and a source of strength. So, until next time, keep turning the pages, keep seeking the light, and always remember you are worthy of a life filled with peace, purpose, and hope. Thanks very much for watching. And Serah, thank you very much for joining us. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Thank you, Chris. It was such a joy. It was such a great time, and hopefully we get to speak again. Thank you so much.